Did you know there's a cemetery in the middle of the interstate in South Carolina? Like literally in the middle, on the median between the north and south lanes of I-85. It's like a literal death trap. But I did go there back in 2017, and I have pictures and information and a little bit of video and some thoughts on flags. Let's take a look. So I went down to Charleston for the eclipse in 2017, but then just kind of bummed around the Carolinas for a little bit after that. And the Carolinas are among my favorite places to bum around. Lots of old stuff, weird stuff, and cheap stuff all over that area. But we're going to focus on this cemetery I went to, which is over 200 years old and is loosely known as the Lipscomb-Sarratt Cemetery, named for the people buried there. It's one of the oldest in Cherokee County, South Carolina, and basically just got hemmed in by road changes and the progression of time. When the small roads became main roads and the main roads became highways, the South Carolina Department of Transportation just basically worked around it. And why wouldn't they? Here's a map showing where it is. If I turn on the terrain, there's all this dirt everywhere because they started widening 85 back in 2019 or so. But alas, they did not and said they will not disturb the cemetery. So I don't know how it is now, but back in 2017 when I went, it was a little scary. The options are to either pull over to the right side and cross the interstate on foot, or pull over to the left side and hope you don't get rear-ended or blow a tire because you're basically pulling over in grass with a bunch of divots. I chose the latter and took my chances with the terrain. Also, it took me a few passes to get up the confidence to do it. If a truck was coming up behind me, I couldn't just brake check him in the left lane. When I finally did pull off, I was still going faster than I was comfortable with, and it definitely tossed me around enough that I definitely needed an alignment when I got done. But once I was stopped, it felt secure. I felt I was enough off the road. Then it was just a matter of walking up the little hill. So when I got up there, it was very peaceful. It was very peaceful, except there were weather-worn Confederate flags all over the place. So I'm sorry that you're going to see so much of that in the pictures. It's pretty tacky, but stick with me because it plays into somewhat interesting event at the end that I caught on video. So here's a picture where I tried to get both sides of the interstate in the frame. It was a little easier said than done up there, but you get the idea. And yeah, despite all the corny flags everywhere, it felt really good up there. I mean, it was a generally nice day with a cool breeze, but just being among those trees and the stone everywhere was very powerful, especially being there by myself. It was very meditative. Time was stopped up there. That part of reality stayed in place for a long time, and it's in a great position to stay longer. Those are very lucky dead people up there. But who are those lucky dead? Well, I did some research on that and found some conclusive things about the potential Civil War connection, but we'll get to that. First of all, being the Lipscomb-Sarratt Cemetery, you might expect everyone up there to be a Lipscomb or a Sarratt, but there are also graves for people with the name Ross up there. Allie Sarratt Lipscomb is the only one with both names, and from what I've researched, Sarratt is her maiden name, and Captain Robert Lipscomb was her husband. And I want to point out, Allie is her nickname, Allie is her real name. Okay. MyHeritage.com says they apparently had a daughter, Hardinia V. Lipscomb, And Find a Grave says there's supposedly a grave marked HV for her with the Sarratt name, but they have no info on it. Meanwhile, there's a Nancy Lipscomb who only lived 9 months, and I guess that would be Allie's daughter. I don't know, though. There's also a Lawson Henry Sarratt, who I assume was Allie's brother, and then this mysterious character, Robert Lipscomb Ross, who is younger than everybody. He would be Allie's grandson or something. If he was her son, then she would have had him at age 59. He died at age 14, presumably in the care of Allie. I don't know. Allie was the last to die of everyone. She died on June 14th, 1888. She was born January 20th, 1805, so she had David Lynch's birthday. Also, Jeffrey Epstein's birthday. Congratulations, Allie. The other ones up there, the Rosses, were all old-timers, mostly dying at the end of the 1700s. Now, all that said, I don't think it would be plausible or even really possible for any of them to have been Confederate soldiers. So I feel like whoever put the flags there may have just been swinging dick. The Civil War lasted from the first part of 1861 to the first part of 1865. So most of the people buried up there they would have been elderly or dead at the time the Civil War started. Nancy Lipscomb was born Valentine's Day, 1832, which would have made her 29 when the Civil War started, had she lived. That's the baby that only lived 9 months. The only other person up there anywhere close to that is Allie, and her being born in 1805 would have meant she was 56 when the Civil War started. Plus, she was female, so I'm sure she didn't enlist or couldn't enlist. Maybe she was a Confederate enthusiast, but none of those other people could have been, and their graves all got hit with flags. So maybe someone was just leaving their trash up there. The questionable presence of the flags, however, did afford me a nice piece of video while I was up there. As you can see in these pictures, there were these thorny bramble things growing out of some of the graves. And this one had a good, healthy stem protruding from the same place as one of those flags. And there was an entanglement that led to this lovely piece of video that I'm about to show you. I call this struggle nature versus the Confederacy. Back and forth they go. And can you guess which one is gonna win? The synthetic nylon from a factory or the one true vine from the earth? There's an inevitability here in time. I really love this video because I think flags are largely trash. All flags, really, but especially ones that advertise things that aren't necessarily related to the space they're in. Flags can be pure ego. Flags are generally just advertisements, right? Like, look at me, look at my brand, this is my symbol. So when I see this video, I see a struggle between the path of least resistance and an act of force. I see a fading advertisement for man's desperation being overcome by the indifference of nature. The vine will keep growing. It will keep shredding away the advertisement. Its cells will replace as it reaches for the sun that hardens the fibers in the advertisement. The vine will be satiated by the same water that burdens the advertisement. And as the thorns embed within the fabric, the wind will give force to their pull. And together, these elements of earth, air, water, and fire will lay total waste to the advertisement in time. The ego is powerless against nature in time. The ego is powerless against nature in time. Yeah. So if you would like to go check this place out for yourself, it's located at these coordinates. It's a latitude of 35.10330 and a longitude of negative 81.62110, Cherokee County, South Carolina, USA, outside Gaffney. You can make a day of it. It's 10 minutes from the hideous Peachoid in Gaffney. Look at this fucked up angle. Gross. It's also 20 minutes from the state line with North Carolina and 30 minutes from Oakwood Cemetery in Spartanburg, also affectionately known to the locals as Hell's Gate. I don't know why they call it Hell's Gate other than the fact that it has a gate. It's actually a really nice cemetery. Also, I'd like to point out this very American totem pole that was sporadically formed outside of a restaurant called Fats using their logo, the Peachoid, American flag, and a handicap sign. I think American totem pole is a good name for this. So anyway, you should go. And if you die, that's on you. However, if you don't want to risk it at this one, there are apparently a few other similar spots out there. I guess this is kind of a thing in South Carolina sometimes. I don't really know for sure. I haven't been to the other places. But if you want to go, on I-26 near Orangeburg, there's supposed to be a cemetery located at a rest area. And on South Carolina Highway 378 near Sumter, some graves belonging to a church cemetery are located in the middle of a highway. So says some article I found. I assume that means something like the Lipscomb-Sarratt Cemetery, but who knows? South Carolina's weird. Maybe you got to watch out for tombstones in the road. I don't know. Clean up those flags. Like and subscribe.